Hey, welcome to another episode of the Stronger Futures Project, where my whole intention of bringing these particular podcasts together is to help people empower themselves so that they can create the future instead of accept the present, accept the future that maybe has been determined by someone else. And I am joined today with my co-host, Dr. Margie Eagan. And I want to share a little bit about her bio. You're going to love this woman. You're going to fall in love with her because of her heart and her passion to help people. So let me just share with you. Dr. Margie Eagan is a distinguished physician. She's a dual board certified endocrinology. That's a tongue twister for me. And and a lifestyle medicine. She's known for her dedication to evidence-based medicine and a holistic approach to health and wellness. Throughout her career, she has championed relationship-centered care, seamlessly integrated traditional and innovative medical practices to support her patients. Now, that's different already. You see, this is why I love this woman. Okay. So Dr. Egan's experience spans diverse leadership roles, including founding the Canterbury Wellness Center and serving as an associate medical director in the Auschwitz Health and Wellness. Answitz, not Auschwitz, Answitz. Bear with me, folks. This is my ADD kicking in, so my brain and eyes don't always work together. This isn't about me. At the University of Colorado, and her latest endeavor, I'm going to mess this up. Rousia is a pioneering thyroid telehealth practice with dynamic social media presence, and she's dedicated to empowering clients through education and evidence-based thyroid care. Welcome, Margie.
Thank you so much, Stan, for having me on board. This is exciting.
I'm excited about this, and maybe that was part of the, my ADD kicking in with my just excitement about talking with you. And as we talked a little bit beforehand, you could probably see that I don't hide my excitement very well. I'm like a little kid, so
we'll get along great.
Great. So why don't you just open up and give us, your heart and give us your intro, who you are, what your story is, and where you've been as it relates to this medical journey.
Well, first of all, thank you for that wonderful introduction. That was great, Stan. And thanks for having me on the show. As I told Stan, this is my first podcast, so forgive me too for as I bumble along. So what about me? I can give you a little info is that I grew up on the East Coast in Connecticut at an early age at 16 when I was dancing ballet, tap, and jazz. And I had a wonderful biology teacher in high school, Mrs. Florio. Those two connected together to excite me about medicine. And I decided at a really early age that I was going to be a doctor. I feel badly for my kids because they think then that when they were 18, they were supposed to know what they were going to do for the rest of their lives. And I kept telling them, your mother was very odd. Most people do not know at that age what they want to do. But I was drawn to it. My passion is to help people, to help them feel better in any which way, because we all have different definitions of health. And so as I went into medical school and then training, I found that I love the endocrine system. It's very complex, but it's also very simple in that you just go down these pathways of if someone has too much hormone, and you look at this pathway of symptoms it puts into the entire body. Same thing if it's not making enough hormones. And then it just guides you through. I almost feel at times like I'm a detective because I look for puzzle pieces. And this is what I've seen happen over in healthcare over the last 30 years that's made it more difficult is we are not given the time anymore to get those puzzle pieces. Right. And 15-minute appointments to figure out what's going on with someone's endocrine disorder, it's not enough. And so doctors have learned how to survive and just almost put Band-Aids on things. You come in with fatigue. Okay, I'm going to give you Synthroid, even though you might not have real hypothyroidism, and then your labs are fine and you should feel back to normal. But you don't feel back to normal. And the doctor doesn't have the time to talk to you and really dig deep about what else is going on. And that was that whole person care, that relationship centered care, where it takes time to develop relationships.
Right.
And someone who feels comfortable with their doctor trusts them and will tell them other things that are going on that they normally would not want to talk about. Stan, you and I were talking just a little bit ago about how since you were a child, you've had people, you can just sense things and people will relate to you.
Right.
I have that same personality, is that people will feel comfortable and will tell me things that they probably have never said to other people. I love that. I call myself an empath. I am a true healer. And sometimes by listening in and of itself, that will help heal someone. So I think I went off on a tangent, but that's a long-winded answer.
No. I love that. And you know, let me ask you, as you're working with people, did you find that disconnect when you were in the medical system, a traditional medical system, and feel that pain even before the client came in? Like you sense something was wrong. And let me share what I'm talking about. There are times when my lower back will hurt out of no reason. And the client that I'm going to work with in 2 days, their back is killing them. And it's like, once I help them relieve their back pain, like mine goes away.
Interesting.
Almost like there's a energetic connection. And when I walk into a room and I can hear this in your voice, is that when your clients walk in and you could feel that disconnect with only having 15 minutes, that is what was the turning point for you to begin this practice, which I applaud you for.
It was, because for so many years of traditional healthcare, I had many discussions within my brain going, in order to survive, do I have to change the way that I practice medicine and get rid of that gifted side of myself? And it is a gift.
Yes.
And just put it aside and just treat symptoms? Or do I continue to do what I do, which that's what I chose, because that is my true self. I can't change that. But it ended up where I got burnt out because all that extra time was at my expense. And I had 2 young kids at home and a wonderful husband, and something's got to give. You know, you can't do all of it. And I tried to do all of it and ended up getting very burnt out and left the system for about 2 years, which I left for another reason too, which is my son had severe mental health issues going on. And my husband and I decided one of us needed to be home to make sure that this child stayed alive. But I also think once I was reflecting and had the time when I was home with him, which even though they were hard years, they were wonderful years because I finally had the time to be present for my children.
Right.
And I couldn't believe that's what the healthcare system was doing to me. I tried it again. I went back into practice at Anschutz, University of Colorado Wellness Center. And at first it was fine, but I ended up in the same, they meet with you every month. They go over your numbers and your numbers aren't here. And that means you've got to see more patients. And I'm going to see the patients that I want to see, give them the care that I want to give them. And you're doing it again at sacrificing something else. So that's why after that was another 5 years, I finally said, I can't do this anymore. I've got to practice the way I want to practice. And so started Rousia. We just launched it the end of September. And it's a virtual thyroid company. So it's all on Zoom, which is interesting because like you said, you can feel people's pain before they come into the office. The one thing about telehealth, I had it happen the other night when I was seeing a patient, her video wasn't on. And I said, I really need your video on because I can read people. You can read their expressions. Right. And I said, because I just suggested something to you and I need to know your expression. I need to know whether you're telling me I'm full of crap or this is what you're willing to try. And she's a friend of mine, so she understood. But that's the one thing I find is hard sometimes with seeing people virtually, is because you're not in the same room with them. Although I'll give you a fascinating, I know I'm going off on a tangent again. It really helped me with people to see how they live, because you'd look in the background and see what was there. And I remember talking to a patient who had diabetes, and there was all this Oreos and chocolate chip cookies and different things in their background. And so I could easily say, why don't you get rid of 2 of those types of cookies and maybe just keep 1 of the types of cookies?
Right.
Or one guy who looked wonderful on Zoom. And I said, what happened? You are so changed from the man I would see in my office. And he said, I have agoraphobia. And I thought, oh my God, that's fear of going out and seeing people. The amount of stress he had to put himself through just to get to my office manifested itself in my office. So for him, Zoom is wonderful because it eliminates that. So there's good things and bad things about the virtual world, but I think for now, a combination is what we need. And so having Rousia as a addition to your traditional care in-person brick and mortar is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing the story about your son, because to me, that's that turning point. And you had the opportunity to say, what is the very most important thing to me? Not my practice, it's my children.
Yep.
And when you were talking about the lack of quality that people can get, because the system has the doctors aren't the bad people, and I want to communicate that 125,000%. Their hands are tied.
Yes.
And so they, I know several doctors that have left the organization, left the system, because they can't do what they went to school to do, because their hands are tied. And they're tied because there's a board of directors that are far removed from the medical practice. They have the money behind them. And so there's a disconnect between personal interaction and business interaction. And in what I do, it is totally meshed. And that's what I'm hearing in you, because here, I don't want to insult a client by taking their money and knowing that I can't help them. And that's what's happened in the system. And when you talked about we're treating symptoms, we're not treating the cause, I want to go back to that.
Yep.
Okay. And this is a point that I really stress with people. Hey, I love you. I don't care that your shoulder hurts. I want to know why your shoulder hurts.
Yep.
And that's what you're telling me. So talk to me a little bit about that, and talk to our audience a little bit about that and how that works.
Well, it's interesting because I've always had the reputation of being a holistic doctor, and I could never understand why, because I don't know anything about Chinese medicine, acupuncture. I'm open to it, and I love it when my patients use that to mesh with traditional medicine. But what I found is it's because I looked at the person and how they lived, and I asked them about their other lifestyle habits, their sleep, their nutrition, their movement, their stress, because all of that goes into their symptoms. And just like you said, I want to get to that root cause. And you've got to dig. That's a detective. That's trying to figure out what's happening. And I'm so excited to see in the medical literature finally coming out. I'll get back to that, how I laugh about how something has to be published before doctors believe that it works, when we should be using our common sense. Medical literature is showing that chronic medical disorders are caused by chronic inflammation. Well, and that's not inflammation from, a knee. And I went skiing all day and my knee hurts, and I can take an anti-inflammatory like Motrin and it'll get better. No, that's not the inflammation we're talking about. We're talking about at the cellular level, releasing free radicals, going into the body, inflaming all the organs. How can we treat chronic inflammation? Will that get rid of chronic medical disorders? No, there will always be chronic medical disorders because we have genetics. I have prediabetes. I inherited the gene from my father. But if I can work on inflammation in my lifestyle and ease it, then I will never go on to become a person who has diabetes. And that to me is such good knowledge for a person to have. And I've talked to my patients with diabetes. They would have loved to have known 20 years ago that they inherited this gene. And if they could change lifestyle then and not have to deal with all the issues they're dealing with now, they would have been so much happier. But the medical world wasn't ready for preventive health care 20 years ago. It's getting there. Still not great, but it's getting there.
Yeah. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that we are not locked into our genes. We actually can control that. We can actually take the preventative measures and go, okay, here's a can of gasoline and here is heat. If I don't bring those together, I'm not predisposed to an explosion.
You'll always be predisposed. You'll have the gene, but you're not giving it the fuel.
You're not giving it the fuel. Okay. So you're not locked into the explosion.
Correct.
Okay. So it is taking self-care and making the proper choices so that you don't have to have that. You don't have to experience. You may have an element, but you don't have to have the experience if you intercept it before they collide.
And I love what you said, the fuel. So think of chronic inflammation as the fuel.
Yes.
So how do we prevent the fuel from activating the antibody? And that's what people will ask me in thyroid disorders. Can I deactivate that thyroid antibody that got activated? And we don't know at the cellular level what is activating. What's that trigger that flips that antibody on? We do know that stress activates it. Well, that's chronic inflammation. Now, none of us want to live a completely stress-free life. There's good stress, there's bad stress. We all need some stress to exist, but it's that extra stress that we don't need that seems to be the trigger. And it can be as simple as just having a bad flu. But think about a move. The move could be for a good reason, but a move is a stressful incident on your body. A marriage, a divorce, a death, any stressor in your life can activate that antibody. And then if you prevent more fuel from going in there, you can slow the activation of that antibody so that it doesn't destroy the thyroid. It is eventually going to destroy the thyroid, but instead of 5 years, maybe it'll be 25 years before you see thyroid function tests go out of whack.
Okay, so how do you intercept that then? And I know that's a loaded question because if people ask me, well, how do I get out of this pain?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't give you a one size fits all because it's not cookie cutter. But what are the steps that I can do? One of the things that I tell people, first off, is I want to know what their diet is. Like you said, you're looking at their pantry. And I really promote this app that I have on my phone that's free. It's called Yucca. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Okay, so yeah, and that is a tool that people can use and they can start to take and make informed decisions based on the products that are being listed by a third party, not the products that are being listed by the company, because everything with a heart on it and has the American Heart Association stamp of approval on is not heart healthy and it's not lowering your cholesterol.
Like Cheerios. I wish I could get the ad for Cheerios off the TV.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. I know.
We have to realize that there are marketers and marketers want you to buy their product. And so, just like you're saying, if in a perfect world, this would happen in the pediatrician's office because you learn behavior from your parents. And I thank God I grew up with a mother who was a runner before there were runners. So I just thought that's what you did. So I just started running when I was in 6th grade. She also cooked very healthy food. She was very weight conscious to an nth degree, which is not good. But my tastes grew up for healthy vegetables, lower fat, not a lot of sauces. And when I see a person who's 45 years old and they've grown up with chicken fried steak and gravy on everything, to change their taste buds to healthier vegetables that have no seasonings on them, that's a big uphill to go up. So I would love it to start with the pediatricians teaching the parents how to change their lifestyle. And then when that child gets old enough, they have a primary care that continues to work with them on healthy lifestyle. Does it mean we should never have fast food again? No. There's going to be times when you're going to stop at McDonald's. But, a simple thing I would tell patients, the bread stinks at fast food places. Don't eat that bread. Just eat the meat. Use the bread as a holder and just eat that meat out of there and get some protein and fat in your system. It's bad fat, but it's better than eating that crappy white bread.
Yeah.
So there's simple things you can do with people. But by the time you and I are seeing people, they've had behaviors that have been ingrained in them for years. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to talk to them about simple changes they can make. You hear I say nutrition. I don't say diet. That has a negative connotation for people. Right. They think they're going to be, they have to take away a lot of stuff and starve. And it has the word die in it. So why am I saying die to my patients? Right. So I always use the word nutrition. And I try and add something rather than take it away. So let's add maybe a green apple before dinner. Because if the fiber would fill them up a little bit more, maybe they would decrease what they're eating. I also use the word movement instead of exercise for the same thing. So many people grew up, they were made fun of in gym class. They went to a gym and you've got all the buff guys and the women are all, in their fancy clothes and their makeup on, and you just didn't feel comfortable. So that's why I just say movement, because most of us love music. I've only had one patient in my career say she hated music. I think she was lying. Because I say, just put it on and jam for 3 songs, jam in your house. And that's just great movement for your body. So those are just a couple suggestions.
Yeah. I love the movement thing. And as a postural specialist, movement is about engaging the body as a unit, not just one element. And, this goes back to that symptom. But one of the things that I'll do when I'm doing mindset coaching is I will have my clients, I say, put on some music. If you're the only one in the house, put on your favorite song and dance for 3 minutes. Yeah. Nobody's going to see. Pull the blinds. Okay. Don't answer the phone. Nobody's watching. You're not under surveillance. Just dance and let your body move and enjoy it. And don't judge yourself. And when people do that, and I do question them, I do challenge them on that, they're like amazed at the freedom and the joy that they have.
Well, that's what I love is the mental elevation they get from it. Yeah.
Yes.
I'll share a funny story with you. Please. I went through a divorce many years ago, and it was interesting how my music taste changed during that time. It was more hard rock and kind of angry rock. And when I came home from work, I would pull the blinds and just jam and get the anger out. One time I forgot to pull the blinds. And my neighbor the next day goes, "You're a really good dancer." And I was like, oh.
I love it.
So pull the blinds or not.
Yes. Oh, but you could have saved his life.
Yeah.
Because he may have that memory and come to a point, and this is something that I learned a long time ago, was we never know what a person's going through until we engage with them.
Yeah.
And our actions may be the thread that they grab a hold of, that their life begins to take launch. And they have that to go back, and your ability to forget that the blind was open may have been the very element that saved that person. Maybe later in years, maybe they went home and did the same thing, and they thought,
you never know.
You just never know.
Well, and that's what's always given me hope in medicine, because sometimes you'll have days you're just beaten down. You see patient after patient, and it feels like they're not willing to change. They're not, they don't want to hear what you're saying. And you're beaten down. But then I have to say to myself, just like you said, I believe that everybody will come to a point where they will want to improve their health. And so something I might have said 10 years ago to them could click in their brain at that time.
Right.
So that would just give me the energy to keep giving the positivity to them. And I'm very blunt. I'm from the East Coast, I told you. So I am positive, but I'm not Pollyanna. I'm going to tell them about the struggles, that this is not easy. If it was easy, because I wonder if you agree. I think most of us, 99%, know what we're supposed to do to live a healthy life, but it's the putting it into action. That's the hard part. If it wasn't hard, we wouldn't have the issues we're having today.
Right. And that goes back to the lie that knowledge is power, because if that were the case, we'd all be happy, healthy, and wealthy. We wouldn't have a problem in the world, because knowledge is not, scarce. It's out there.
Yep.
And you just do a quick search on anything, and there are 100,000 different people telling you 100,000 different ways what worked for them. And now you've got to siphon it. You've got to decipher it and decide what works best for you. And I love that. The Pollyanna thing is, you got to be real sometimes, and you just got to call it out on the carpet and say, look, this is what you have, a choice. And as much as I want to help you, I can't do it for you.
Yep.
Where will you meet me on this road or this journey, so that at least I know, okay, if you got 10 different types of cookies in the back, which 2 will you get rid of this week?
Yep.
You can keep the other 8 for another week. Okay. But let's get rid of 2. And once we begin that cycle, now we've got implementation.
It keeps moving. Yep.
It keeps moving.
Yep.
And it becomes easier. The hardest part of moving a boulder is that first 2 inches. Once you get that motion in movement, that's when it starts to get easier. And now you can push that boulder, and it becomes easier and easier. And you begin to ask yourself, why didn't I try this before?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I always think of Newton's law of gravity with inertia. A body in motion stays in motion. A body at rest stays at rest. Yes. And there are times in my life where I am not exercising, and I sit on the couch, and I have to force myself, get your butt off the couch. This is the last thing you want to do, but get outside and go for a walk. And then once you're out there, you're like, I remember this feeling. Why didn't I keep doing it? And so I want people to realize that those of us who have always been involved in good nutrition, good movement, it's not that we don't struggle. There are times it's really hard to keep up. I'll say to my husband and I go to the gym today together. And at the end, it's like, oh, how was your workout? I did it. And other days it's like, yeah, that was great. But there are days where you're like, I got through it. It's done. So yeah, I had an interesting story of a man who was doing a weight loss program at the wellness center I was at. And he said a revelation occurred to him. He thought he was the only one who was having to eat this way. And he finally looked around at people at a restaurant who were thin. And he goes, oh my God, they're eating the same thing I am right now. A lot of people don't realize that, there's just choices. You make them every day. And sometimes they're going to be good, sometimes not so good. And I'd like you to tip into the range of the majority of them are good.
Right. Yeah. That's happens so often when we think we're the only one, and we start talking about it. Yeah. And we discover that, oh my gosh, they feel the same way. Yeah. And as we open this conversation up, we find out that we're not so different.
Yeah.
We're actually so interconnected that it's mind-blowing. And so as you're working with clients, and you have now the freedom to give them the quality over the quantity of people that you're seeing, how has that been embraced?
Well, one, it just is a wonderful feeling for me. And I can see the relief in patients' face when they know I'm not rushing them off the Zoom call, that we have all the time in the world. And tell me your story. Tell me what's going on. Tell me what you've tried, what seemed to work, what didn't seem to work. And we figure it out together. And just, I hate when people tell me, makes me so sad. My doctor said my labs are fine. And I say to him, what do you mean fine? What is the level? Because what's fine for you might not be fine for someone else. And
Exactly.
like the TSH level, the thyroid stimulating hormone, the range goes from 0.5 to 5.5. I like to keep people, and endocrinologists like to keep people in a sweeter spot of 0.5 to 2. But you also have to realize that those are on a hyperbolic curve. So 20% of us fall outside of the range. 10% will be lower, 10% will be higher.
Right.
And so if you are just as a doc, just thinking within the ranges, you got to get outside your box and think of what's good for the patient.
Right.
And so that's why when I go over the labs with people, I'm not trying to overwhelm them with all the knowledge, but I want them to know their levels. So when they go on from me and they go to another doc who says your TSH level is fine, they can say, excuse me, what's the level? What is the range? I want to know what my number is. And if they say 4, you'll be like, well, I don't do well at 4. I do well when my TSH is 0.5 to 2. You need to raise my medication. So that's where knowledge is power, is when the patient can be their own advocate. Right. And I want to be their teacher. And in the beginning, I'm more the teacher and they're the student. But then we become equals, and then they surpass and they can move on from me. And then I've done my job. When you're able to say, I got this, Dr. Eagan, now I'm going to help others.
Okay, so as it comes to the thyroid, are there warning signs that, let's say there's somebody that hasn't had the opportunity to go get blood work and they start to notice, and I say symptoms because we really need to take this scan of our body. We need to just pause, relax, and just, if you know, and I do this with people, I'll say, sit down and close your eyes. Now, I want you to feel your ankles without touching them. I want you to get in touch with your body. As you begin to scan, now come up your calf. Tell me what your muscles feel like. Tell me what your knee feels like. And they go, oh my gosh, I'm starting to have this like pain in my outside of my knee. And it wasn't there before. I said, no, it was there before. You just weren't aware of it. So as it comes to the thyroid, can people do like a self-scan and go, these are the indicators? Not, this isn't like watching 60 Minutes and go, I got trigger finger, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Okay. And it is taking an awareness of our body and say, you know, I'm beginning to notice something is off. Is there a window that I could look in and go, what's happening?
It's so neat. You're having them do a body scan, which, you know, for meditation and releasing and everything, it helps you. But the symptoms with thyroid, they're so nonspecific. And that's what's so hard with the disorder. Fatigue, weight gain, changes in your hair, skin, and nails. And so that's where a scan would be good. I had a question from a woman yesterday because we have this Rousia Health Thyroid Support Group on Facebook. And she's postpartum. Well, what new mom isn't exhausted, is unable to lose the weight, and has changes in her hair, her skin, and her nails? And it's that nuance of, are these symptoms that are due to this, or is there something else going on? Mm-hmm. And I wish I had a magic mirror ball, but my short answer would be, if you feel off, you have slept 11 hours and you still are exhausted in the morning. That can happen once in a while, but if that's happening routinely, go get levels checked. Does it just have to be thyroid? No, because there's many other things that can cause fatigue. But especially in women, just have them draw a TSH and a free T4 And what I love about nowadays is you can actually even walk into labs like LabCorp and Quest,
Right.
and you don't even need a doctor's order. You can get it yourself. It'll probably be more expensive because I'm not sure if they're using insurance or not. But most primary cares, if you have a good relationship and you just say, could you add these levels? If it's just one or two, they're going to say, yeah, no problem. If you come in with a battery of 20 labs that you want done, doctors are going to say, no, you need to come in for an appointment. But so I'm just saying limit, I have these symptoms. It's more fatigue than I'm used to. This weight gain, I haven't changed anything in my life and this is happening. And then the hair, skin, and nails. Those are the major symptoms. There's also a lot with brain fog. Depression is associated with thyroid. So anytime someone is being evaluated for depression, they definitely need a thyroid checked. Irregular periods. If you're trying to get pregnant, get a TSH level checked. It's a major cause of infertility, and it's so easily treated and brings fertility back. So those are the nuances of thyroid.
I love number one that you said about the numbers. I don't want to get back to this. And then it's so easily detected.
Yes.
So you demystify this mystical experience that it feels like, what if I have, and you can throw in anything that you want in there.
Cancer is what most people think of.
Yeah. You start going to the worst instead of saying, oh my gosh, maybe it's the Oreos that I'm eating.
Yeah.
That's making me feel this way. A simple blood test like this can eliminate the guesswork and also the stress.
Oh yeah.
Now, before I go on, I want to know, and I want our audience and I want those listening, how can they get a hold of you? And I apologize. I should have had you change your
my Margie. Yeah.
Your name and put the link. I don't know. Are you able to put in the chat how people get a hold of you, and then I could bring it over? I like I said, I apologize. I know that we're going to have more conversations about this. I know that for a fact because you are bringing gold here today. And number one, I'm honored that I'm the first podcast that you've been on. Real.
And of course, I'm looking to see how I can put anything in the chat, and I'm not seeing that either. But
okay.
Let's see. Oh, that's private chat. Let me see if I can go on to.
Yeah, do that.
Interesting.
And while you're doing that, I want to bring back and highlight what you just said. And I've had conversations with doctors that have left the system and they are advocates for themselves and they get treated mishandled when they go to the facility and they're saying, hey, look, my numbers, normal is dangerous. If you're falling in normal, you're being thrown into a pool of people. Okay, let me see if I can do this. Let me copy that. And let me see if I can bring that over to the captions and add a ticker and paste. And here we go. Okay, now I am going to show that. Okay, there we go.
Oh, yeah, cool.
All right. And let's see here. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to hide and I'm going to edit and I'm going to add something in here. Okay. And show that. There we go. All right. Very good. So, I love that you bring that up. And you've talked a little bit about this, but I'd like you to explore this just a little bit more. How is telehealth making thyroid care easier and even more comfortable than the conventional in-office? And I think you talked about the time allowed, but what else is there that?
Well, the average wait time to get into an endocrinologist in private practice is 3 to 6 months. And when you don't feel good, you want to be seen right away. And
Right.
virtual care, we see you within 1 to 2 days. You don't need a referral. There's no wait times, and you get immediate treatment. So do I just give you medicines? No, we also talk about lifestyle, but a lot of people have other people in their life that are helping them with the lifestyle management. So I will focus more on your meds and try and be creative, because sometimes people are on just levothyroxine alone, and 40% of those people still don't feel good, even when their levels are normal. So then we're creative in what we do. So the ability to get in, that's my main benefit, I feel, without a referral, and to see an endocrinologist, someone who has specialized in this. You know, I did 3 years after residency in order to specialize in hormones. And so I believe having a specialty in it too, and knowing all the different nuances and medications that can be tried, help people out and help them feel better as soon as they can, which again, in the thyroid is not right away. It takes a while, but if we're moving that path forward, it happens more quickly as you go along.
So if it runs in the family, then it is definitely something that people want to not put off, and just take this care and go, okay, here again, it's about the nutrition. What is it that I'm feeding the engine
Yep.
to give me the results that I'm looking for? And if there is I mean, in our vehicle, if it starts to knock, we start asking questions. We don't turn the volume up and say, if I can't hear it, it's not there. That's not how the body works. And this is what I tell people, I'm like, how long have you been suffering? And they will tell me 20 years.
Yeah.
And I go, why? Because they give me some crazy excuse, thinking that they're defective or broken, and they've just been given this hand of a deal that is, they're just stuck. And I say, you're not stuck. And I think that's what you're saying as well. You're not stuck. Let's just know what your numbers are, and let's intercept it before we have to put out a fire.
Yep.
So what happens when somebody calls you and it's first time, they're just nervous, they've had some symptoms, let's say they can't lose the weight, they've had irregular periods, do men get the thyroid?
Men get thyroid also, but not as common. And they'll have more of the fatigue, the weight gain, the brain changes, stuff like that. They don't have changes in periods.
Good. I'm glad we both agree on that.
They can have decrease in libido, though.
Sure.
So, a lot of men coming in for low T, you need to check the thyroid also to make sure that it's functioning, because it could be as simple as that. And you just put them on thyroid hormone and they don't need testosterone.
Okay.
But you bring up a good point with the genetics. If you have a family history of people with thyroid, such as mom, sister, you ask your primary care to just check a TSH level every year. And as I said, that range is so wide. I used to do this with people, and if I saw their TSH 1 year was 1, and then the next year was 2, and then the next year was 3, then I'm like, okay, something's going on here. So you would throw in thyroid antibodies. And if those antibodies are positive, I would even put people on medication before they're outside of the normal range, again, to quiet those antibodies. So the remainder of the thyroid that's still functioning will continue to still function, even though I've got them on a low dose of thyroid. The other thing is putting out fires. People will continue to avoid their symptoms. They just, we push them away. I'm tired. I didn't have a good night's sleep. I'm just going through. I got to do my job. I got to take care of my kids. It's just our natural way of being. And what I love about the body is if you don't listen to it, it gets stronger until it's slamming you on the head with a symptom. And that's when a lot of us will go, oh, maybe it's time to go get checked out. As a doc, I would love it if we could listen and be more sensitive to our body so that we heard those symptoms earlier. But again, look at all our lives. We are so stressed out, so busy with everything we try and do, that this is just another added thing that someone has to do. And I'm laughing because you're talking about the car analogy, you would think we all would listen to it when it would knock.
Right.
Except my 22-year-old daughter, who her father kept saying, get the oil changed, get the oil changed, get the oil changed, until her engine blew.
Yes.
That's our body. So your body will be sending you signals, get the oil change, get the oil change, get the oil change. And then it goes
Yeah.
and has an explosion of symptoms.
Yeah. And even not just getting the oil change, just checking the level from time to time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you have never changed your own oil,
I haven't.
then checking it is a simple thing that there's a gauge that goes in.
Oh, no, I know how to check it. Yeah.
It's not on the line. You've got to either add or you're going to walk.
Yeah.
And I laugh at that. I pulled over one day. There was a girl that was stuck on the side of the road, and I pulled over and I said, "You look like you're having trouble." And she said, "Yeah, my gas gauge says that I've got 17 miles left in my gas tank, and I can't get this thing started." I didn't want to laugh because I didn't want her to feel bad, but that was a true story. And it was like, well, let's just see. Turn the engine over, and it like there was no smell of gas at all,
Yeah.
you know. And I said, well, let's go get some gas. And she said, I just don't understand. It said I have 17 more miles left. And what we don't realize is that when we leave our vehicle idle, it's burning that fuel. And
Yep.
the same thing with our bodies. When we leave it idle, like you said, when you sit on the couch and you're not moving and you're eating what you did 20 years ago, now your metabolism has changed and your chemistry has just adapted to the junk that we're putting in it. Like you said, don't eat the bread from the I've vowed not to eat fast food restaurants unless it's an absolute emergency.
Yes.
But the idea is that taking this care and meeting with someone like you, there is so much more that I would love to explore. But I think what we've done is we've given people, number one, an opportunity to meet you virtually right here.
Yep.
And to hear your heart, to hear your why, and also to know that you, even as a medical doctor specialist, you had to walk away so that you could tend to the very most important thing, and that was your child.
Yep.
And by doing so, it gave you more fuel. You weren't quite ready. It took 5 more years. Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
Where you said, you know what? Care isn't happening. I'm frustrated, struggling, and they can pacify me, but it's not working. There's got to be a better way. And this is, the philosophy that I have is challenge the narrative.
Yep.
And I fell under that I had a bunch of tests done, and I shared this when we first talked, and the doctor said they're normal. And, I'm like, that's not a good enough answer for me.
Yeah.
And he said, they're normal. And this is just life.
Yeah.
And that was a specialist. And I thought, if that's how I'm going to be treated, I'm going to leave that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to leave that model, and I tell people, I don't know karate, but I know crazy. And so when it's crazy, I'm leaving the system.
Yeah.
And that's, I've found myself meeting people like yourself, and you're causing me to take an inventory and go, okay, you know what? That was a few years ago. It's time to get the test run again.
Get it rechecked.
Just know what your numbers are,
Yeah.
and then find somebody that will actually tell you what it's about.
Yep.
Demystify thyroidism, demystify, the weight loss or the brain fog or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I know you've got a busy schedule coming up, but I definitely want to do another follow-up.
Absolutely. I'd love to.
So in closing, I'd like you to just share with people maybe something that I haven't been able to bring out, and you'd like to just invite people.
Well, I would love people to check out the website, www.rousia.com. It is still in progress. I was telling Stan, it's very educational, so it can be overwhelming. I'm trying to simplify that so you can easily navigate through it. But my goal is always to educate, to help, to teach. And so be gentle when you look at the website. I love the website, but as I said, it can be too overwhelming at first. So then go on. What I would recommend is our social media. Find us on Instagram, Facebook. We're on TikTok. It's Rousia, Rousia. And then the Rousia Health Support Group on Facebook is a great way. I can't give medical advice on Facebook. It is just my opinion. But I answer all the questions. And I thank you guys for listening to me today. It's been a joy just talking.
Fantastic. Well, the support is the very most important thing. And is there a link on your website where they can schedule like a
yes, you go right on the website and it says book an endocrinologist. Yep.
Fantastic. All right. Well, Margie, it has been a pleasure and very energetic. I love it. So thank you so much.
Have a great rest of your day, Stan.
Okay, thank you. And to our audience, I want you to have an outstanding week and really take Margie up on her offer. Don't feel like you got to do this by yourself. Do this with support. Do this with somebody who understands and sympathizes and empathizes and can give you a direction of which way to go and how to take control and give you back the power over your own health for longevity and vitality. There's no sense in adding years to your life, but by adding life to your years, that's where the quality comes in. So be outstanding. And until the next time, we'll see you then.
Take care.